I assure you, this is not what makes people have to pee all the time. Hey friends, Nicole here. I was having a conversation with one of my friends, like we always do, about all sorts of girl, mom stuff, and it came up how she is always having to pee, how she can only go like an hour without peeing. Back in the day when concerts was a thing, thanks COVID, she would have to leave every like half hour because she had to pee so much during it, or when she goes on trips, she has to plan a lot of extra time for stops because she's always in the bathroom peeing. And I've also worked with clients as a physical therapist that say, well, I'm always in the bathroom. Just even when I leave the bathroom, like 5 minutes later, it'll feel like I have to go again, or I just have this urge to go all the time, even when I know I just peed. So this video is going to be about the 5 things that actually are making you pee way too much, and 5 things that you can do to stop peeing so much. So I am a physical therapist, in case you didn't already know that, and I specialize in pelvic health. And something that we go over a lot with clients that are complaining about peeing all the time is that it's not necessarily a genetic thing. So sometimes it feels like, oh, that's just the way my bladder is. There's nothing I can really do about it. This is just how I am. And it is how you are, but there's probably some things that you're doing throughout your day you didn't even realize you were doing. I mean, there's lots of things when I look back, I'm like, oh yeah, I do that. Yep, that's probably why that happened. So I want to just bring some awareness to some of those things that are probably tripping you up and actually making you have to pee all the time. The first of those things is bladder irritants. So I have with me today some things like carbonated drinks. This is not even pop or soda or whatever you call it. I'm a Midwesterner, so we call it pop here. But this is just LaCroix, and this has carbonation, so it can make you pee more often. Things like wine. I apologize, this was a full bottle of wine, but then the weekend happened. It's not anymore. Don't worry, I'm not gonna tell you that you can't drink wine anymore. Things like coffee, these are all irritants for our bladder. So caffeine, carbonation, and alcohol actually do things to our body that make it so that our urine is really irritating when it is in our bladder. So all the pee is in our bladder, and if it has caffeine, alcohol, or carbonation, it's just more irritated, and so the bladder wants to get rid of it. It doesn't like it in there. And so it is sending cues to our brain to just get rid of that stuff it doesn't like in there. We don't want to completely avoid those things. Well, most of us don't. A lot of us really rely on our coffee in the morning, so that's something we just don't want to go without. But there are things that we can do to be able to enjoy those drinks and still learn how to be able to go longer than an hour without going to the bathroom. Which, by the way, if you're wondering like what is a normal amount of going to the bathroom during the day, usually we like to go at least 2 to 4 hours during the day without going to the bathroom to pee. And so that works out to about 5 to 8 times a day. It is, if you're not pregnant, you should not actually be getting up to go to the bathroom during the night either. Some people think, oh, I always pee during the night, and that might be true for you, but it's not, wouldn't be considered normal, and there are probably things that you could do, which I'm talking about in this video, to make it so that you could make it through the night without actually getting up and going to the bathroom, which can be kind of disruptive to your sleep, especially if you have to turn lights on or get really awake when you get up. The second thing that is probably irritating your bladder is not drinking enough water. Some people are under the impression that if they drink less water, they'll go pee less. I actually have some family members that think that this is the way to go. Unfortunately, you're dehydrating your body, which just isn't good in general for your organs and your body. It messes up a lot of things when we aren't hydrated enough. But another reason why it's not the greatest is because our urine is then really concentrated. You know how when you go pee, this is probably TMI, but that's what this channel is all about, is sharing things that are way more information than you really wanted to know. So TMI, but when you go pee and it stinks, like that first pee in the morning, usually it's like really potent. This is because that urine is really concentrated. The same thing happens when you're dehydrated. Your urine becomes really concentrated, and that concentrated pee actually is an irritant, again, for our bladder, and so it wants to get rid of that because it doesn't like the feeling of concentrated pee or dehydrated pee in our bladder. So I will say that if you start drinking more water and get more hydrated, yes, at first you are going to pee more often, but eventually your body is going to get used to that, and it'll be a good thing. In the end, you'll be hydrated and not in the bathroom as much. The third thing that is probably making you pee too much is the just in case pee. So let me just kind of use my water here to show you how this works. If you are getting ready to go on a road trip, my family just did this recently, and of course as a mom we're like, okay, everybody go to the bathroom. So here we all are running into the bathroom, going pee, you know, spending 10 minutes of our prep time in the bathroom going pee. And what this does if we don't actually have to go pee is this. This measuring cup is our bladder, and I should have used dye, I guess, in this water, but let's say there's a little bit of water in there. We're at about a quarter cup here, and we empty out our bladder because we're like, oh, I better pee just in case because I don't want to have to stop on my road trip. And then you end up having to stop to get gas. Another thing that happened to our family because we all went to the bathroom before we left. However, we did not fill the fuel tank. Rookie mistake. Anyways, so again, most of us went to the bathroom. So I'm resisting the urge to pee. Oh, need more snacks. Resisting the urge to go in and go pee just because we're stopped. It seems like, oh, maybe I'll just go. But no, you don't want to do that. But if I did go in and pee, I'm again only at a quarter cup, and I'm like, well, I'm near a bathroom, so I better pee just in case. What happens is the more times you do this, when your even though your bladder could hold the full cup of water, wow, I measured that really well, a full cup of water before it needed to empty because it was at full capacity, it starts to think, oh, every time I'm at a quarter, that's when we've been stopping and going to the bathroom. So I'm gonna just start telling the brain, we're at a quarter cup, better go to the bathroom. And this is not great because we want our bladders to be able to hold it for longer periods of time to be more functional. Like for instance, if you're at work, when I was working at the hospital as a physical therapist, it was just really busy. So I take time to pee during the day, but I don't want to have to be going into the bathroom every hour. It's just not convenient. Same as a mom, because let's face it, when you go pee, you never know what your toddlers and babies are doing. They're probably raiding your cupboards or pouring something on the floor or just making giant messes. So the more we can avoid frequent trips to the bathroom that aren't necessary, the better. At least that's what I think. So anyways, you don't want to pee just in case. You want to wait until your bladder is actually full and then go to the bathroom, and then that'll make sure that your brain doesn't start sending you signals to empty when it's not actually full. I've been being really careful about this with my kids because it's very tempting, like, oh, we're going outside, better pee just in case. But if it hasn't been a couple hours, it's really not necessary, and we could be creating bad habits. If you find that you pee a lot, in the comments, I would love to hear if as a kid or even just as an adult, you use the just in case pee, because I find that a lot of people are doing this and they don't even realize that this is contributing to why they are going pee so much. The last two things are a little more on the technical side and something as a pelvic floor physical therapist I'm super aware of, but you probably weren't. So hopefully these are new to you. So number 4 is going pee when your bladder is like in a spasm and your urge is really high. So let's say you really, really have to go to the bathroom and you have to run to get there. You barely get your pants down and you're already peeing. This would be peeing when your bladder is in a spasm and it's a little angry. Basically think of it as a toddler throwing a tantrum, and if you do what your toddler wants, we all know that later on it's going to cause problems because our toddler thinks then that throwing a tantrum is how to get your attention and how to get what they want. The same exact thing is true for your bladder. If you pee when it's in a spasm all the time, it thinks, well, I'm just going to go crazy and send way too many signals to the brain because that's what they're going to listen to, what they're going to go pee. So what you really want to do is use some suppression techniques, which we're going to talk about in our 5 ways to stop peeing so much. But use some of those techniques to get your bladder to calm down, and you don't have to wait very long, but once it's calm, once it's not an urgent situation, then make your way to the bathroom. This is really hard to do because we are all afraid of peeing our pants, at least I think most of us are, so we don't want to risk it, but we really do need to retrain our brain. So practice this when you're at home in case leaking happens. It's fine. Throw on a new pair of underwear, whatever you need to do, wear a pad for the day, whatever you need to do to start getting your brain to get the right signal and not letting your temper tantrum bladder get the best of you. The 5th thing is related to that, and it's basically peeing whenever you get like a small urge because of a trigger. So a trigger could be walking outside in the cold, it could be just taking that sip of water, it could be running your hands under cold water, jumping in the shower. Basically, when you have those triggers happen, your bladder sends a quick message to your brain saying, ooh, I have the sensation we should pee. And if every time you get that sensation, you pee at that moment, it's a lot like that temper tantrum of your bladder. And you're basically telling your bladder that, okay, every time you have this slight urge, we're gonna pee, instead of relying on the signals of when the bladder is actually full. And there are some ways to get around this trigger. And so we are gonna talk about those next, because we are moving on to the 5 solutions for what to do if you find yourself in the bathroom all the time. So the first trick and thing that I really think you should do is fill out a voiding diary, a bladder diary. It's basically a journal where you are going to fill out when you eat and drink things during the day, when you have to go to the bathroom, if you have a strong urge to go to the bathroom, and if you experience any leaking or incontinence throughout the day. And you track the time that these things are all happening, and then at the end of the day, you can kind of look at it and notice how your day went. And you want to do this for about 5 to 7 days, ideally, so that you can look at your journal and start to notice patterns. I have actually created a cute little journal diary entry type of a thing that you could just easily print off, and the one sheet is one day. You could print off 5 to 7 of those and just fill one out each day. If you are interested in that, I'm going to put my email in the description as well as in the comments below, and if you want one, just email me and say, hey, I want that bladder diary, and I will send you a copy. And I think it could be really helpful for step number 2, which is dissecting your bladder journal, your bladder diary, and looking for patterns so that you can find out what your triggers are, and how much incontinence you're having, how often you're going to the bathroom. So I want to break this down to make a little bit more sense for you. Let's say you look at your journal and you notice that you were in the bathroom at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and then you made it all the way to 2 o'clock, and then you sneezed at 4 o'clock and you had a little bit of incontinence, let's just say. Lots of other things would be on your journal, but let's say those specific things were on there. Well, you could look at, did you eat or drink anything in the morning? And for most of us, we probably are gonna say, oh yeah, we did drink a cup of coffee at 8 o'clock, and maybe that's why I was in the bathroom at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Another thing you could notice is that then you were able to go 4 hours from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and you didn't have any incontinence at all. So that was within that normal 2 to 4 hour range. When you peed at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 10 o'clock, that was peeing every hour. That would be a little excessive. We really want to try to make it to that 2 hour mark. So then you can take that information and you can do something with it. So, almost spilled my water. So you can take that information and you can do something with it. So you know that caffeine is making your bladder irritated. You could either, for a little while, see what it's like without the coffee, which is hard. I am not a diehard coffee drinker, just like for fun and social coffee drinker, so the caffeine doesn't really matter too much to me. But if someone said I had to give up my chocolate chips that I eat in the afternoon, I couldn't do it. So I get it. A couple options. You could either get rid of it while you do your bladder diary, see if anything changed. You could do half decaf or completely decaf. Or you could just say, okay, I know that I'm peeing a lot in the morning, but I am not ready to make a change to that right now, so I don't actually have anything that going to the bathroom a lot is interfering with, and I'm just okay with that. That could be your decision as well. It's really has to fit your lifestyle. Like, I'm not trying to make you make changes that you're like, that is not sustainable for me. Another thing that you could look at is, okay, I'm peeing every hour. What if I went an hour and 15 minutes? So instead of peeing at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, I'm going to try to make it till 9:15 before I pee. And sometimes this does include setting a timer and actually looking at the clock and saying, okay, I'm not going to pee for another 15 minutes. And this gets me into the third tip, which is using types of distraction to be able to suppress those sudden urges. By the way, if you are finding these tips really helpful and I told you something that you haven't heard before, please hit that like button. It really does help YouTube to show it to more people that could benefit from this video. So once you realize, okay, I want to try to make it 15 minutes longer, you're going to distract yourself. You might get on your phone and do your grocery list. You might get on and watch a YouTube video. Maybe you are going to play Candy Crush, whatever you could do to distract your brain. You do want it to be something that's not totally mundane. So just like counting to 10, most of us can do that without even thinking. It's not really going to distract us because it's something we can do without even thinking about it. So try to have it something where it does take brain power to do it. Another thing you can do to suppress that urge is to take really big relaxing breaths. So the bladder is a muscle and it squeezes and relaxes, and when it squeezes, that is when it's going to let your pee out, right? You want to take big breaths and relax your body. The more relaxed you are, the more that urge is going to come down. Sometimes you do actually have to put pressure on your perineum. This is another not really socially attractive way to do it, but if the urge is really strong, you can do that as well. So find a way to suppress the urge. Once the urge is suppressed, then make your way to the bathroom. You're telling that toddler, we need to calm down, we need to get control of our emotions, then we can worry about next steps, then we can talk about if we're gonna do what you're asking for or we're gonna do that later. But you are in charge, not your temper tantrum bladder. Tip number 4, we've kind of already touched on, but it's basically when you notice those triggers, or it's caffeine, it's carbonated drinks, it's alcohol, think about, okay, are we in a retraining phase? Is it bothering me that I'm in the bathroom so much? And if it is, let's try to get some good habits in place and then reintroduce those irritants. So if you like your glass of wine on Friday night, I am definitely not saying that you need to stop drinking wine altogether. It's just saying that while you teach your bladder new habits, maybe avoid some of those irritants or go to a little bit of decaf or don't drink as much alcohol. Just limit those things so that you can really start to get good habits with your bladder. Then you can slowly reintroduce those things. And of course, when you are going to introduce irritants, make sure you are really hydrated so that your urine isn't really concentrated, which is only going to perpetuate the problem and make it worse because now you're dehydrated. Plus alcohol actually dehydrates you even more. So it sends all that fluid to your bladder and it just makes kind of a catastrophe and makes you have to pee all the time. But just think about in the retraining phase, if you can retrain your bladder, good habits, and then reintroduce those things. And finally, the fifth thing is stop going pee just in case. And please, please, please try not to make your kids go pee just in case. And like I said, I am totally guilty of this. For our road trip, I always want everyone to go pee. What you can do to get around this is you could time it so that everyone doesn't pee until right before you're gonna leave. So of course, if you're in a potty training phase, this isn't really possible. But for me and my husband, if like a half hour before we are gonna leave, we have to pee, see if we can hold it that extra half hour and then pee closer to when it is time to leave. Avoid going pee when you just slightly have an urge, including in the middle of the night. So like I said, a lot of us get up to pee in the middle of the night. And if you really stop to think about it, do you pee because you really, really have to go and you're afraid you might pee your pants? Or do you pee because you're like, well, I'm awake and I kind of have to go. I might as well go now so I don't wake up later. This is peeing just in case you have to pee later. And what this does is it actually creates patterns. So now your body gets really used to peeing in the middle of the night. And it's like, okay, this is what we do. This is our routine. Our bladder is very in tune with routines and habits. And so this can cause us to perpetually have to pee in the middle of the night. So if you can be like, you know what, it's not the end of the world if I wake up in an hour and I have to go pee, I'll just get up and go then. Try not to go pee unless the urge is really strong. Avoid that just in case pee. And for those of you, this is a little bonus tip, I guess, but for those of you that are getting up in the night to pee, make sure that you're not drinking all your water for the day at the end of the day. Try to stay nice and hydrated throughout the day and avoid loading up those fluids right before bed, like the hour or two before bed. Try to keep them front load them all at the beginning of the day. The other thing would be make sure you are peeing a lot during the day, because for some of us, we're gonna pee so many times during the day. If we don't do it during the day, it's all gonna happen at night. So this is kind of the opposite problem of the person in the bathroom all the time. This might be the nurse that works a whole shift and doesn't pee and then gets home and then during the night you're peeing a lot then. So try to get all your peeing out during the day and front load your hydration towards the beginning of the day. Those are my tips for you. I hope they were really helpful. If you are the person that actually pees a little bit when you sneeze or laugh, you really need to check out this video up here, because that is a different kind of incontinence. It is called stress incontinence. It can be healed. It's not just part of being a mom. Check that video out.